Hey Squishies! Welcome back to another vlog. This is Howl's Moving Castle. At the request of Benny Blue, the person who commissioned Seven Deadly Sins, I am taking a break from it this month and watching Howl's Moving Castle instead. So, I have seen this movie before. Obviously I watched it before recording this, but I saw it years ago when it was first in theaters. I recall liking it, but not loving it. And I remember commenting on it having a very dream-like feel. It did not feel that way this time. I don't really know what's going on there. But I don't remember if I've talked about this on camera. I suspect I haven't. But I see Miyazaki's films. One moment, sorry. I was saying, for me, Miyazaki's films lie on kind of a spectrum. At one extreme, you have very elegiac films. They are slow, contemplative, very beautiful, but in a sad way. They're permeated by this sadness for something that's been lost. Often, it's a nostalgic sadness for childhood, or for a past in which there was more nature, or people were more spiritual. Like it's this nostalgic longing and sense of loss that kind of permeates them. And I don't like those as much. And I know this is gonna probably, lead a lot of people to question my taste. The most elegiac of Miyazaki's movies is also the one that I just straight up dislike, which is My Neighbor Totoro. There, I said it. I find it boring. At the other extreme are what might be called his polemic films. Very angry, very pointed, very much about criticizing the world as it is at the time of making, and very much characterized by anger at something that is currently being lost. And very often it's the same things. Childhood, nature, spirituality. The difference is in, I really feel like running thread through all of Miyazaki's films is that he is upset about the loss of those three things. And at least one of them shows up in basically every one of his movies as something that is being lost, and that's bad. But the difference is how much of that upset is expressed in the form of anger versus sadness. And while it's not a one-to-one relationship, generally speaking, I find the movies where he's angry more interesting, more entertaining, more enjoyable, and the movies where he's sad, less so. So my favorite of his movies is one of the most polemical, which is Princess Mononoke. The only one that might be more polemical than that is Nausicaa, and that one's also one I quite like, although that's a little colored by the fact that the manga is way better. But where was I? Howls. I feel like Howls falls kind of in the middle of that spectrum. It's one of the two movies of his that I'd put very close to the middle. The other one is Spirited Away, which I feel like it definitely isn't angry. It definitely doesn't like that these things are disappearing, but it isn't so sad about it either. It's a little hard to express. Sort of disappointed but wanting it back in the case of Spirited Away. Howls is a little different. Howls falls into the middle not because the emotion is ambivalent so much as because it almost feels like it's absent. The movie feels very emotionally flat to me, and I think that's part of why I initially characterized it as having a dreamlike quality. The characters do things, and it's never really clear why they're doing any of it. Except occasionally when they just declare it. But even then it's like, why? How? When did you come to feel this way? Like, Sophie's motivation for the latter half of the film is that she is in love with Howl. Okay. When did that happen? How did that happen? Why did that happen? Like, we never see, up until the climax of the film, anything that feels like she feels romantically towards him. Mostly she's just annoyed with him. And not even in that, like screwball comedy, they annoy each other, but it's because they really like each other, playground childishness kind of thing. It's just there. Or like, she is cursed to be old, and seems mostly okay with it, except when she's super upset about it. And sometimes she gets younger, and it's not clear why. Like, is it confidence or honesty or contentment that makes her younger again? Because, like, she's young when she's asleep, which is interesting. But then, like, she seems to get younger when she's expressing herself emotionally, except then she starts crying in one scene and gets older again, so maybe it's only showing positive emotion that makes her younger. But then there's other places where she's not really showing that much emotion, but she's kind of taking charge, and that makes her seem to get younger, except when she's first cleaning the house. That doesn't seem to make her get younger, even though she's being very take charge there. It's like, I'm okay with a movie not spoon feeding me. I'm okay with ambiguity, But there has to be something there. There has to be some sense of who is this character, what makes them tick, Because otherwise, you don't have characters. You just have plot devices. And I really feel like that's what's going on in this movie. Like, it's not a bad movie. It's an enjoyable couple hours. But it's pretty much just a bunch of things happening. There's no there. Why does the Witch of the Waste, like, why, when she gets turned old, does she start behaving like this gentle child, except then she suddenly, except she still wants to eat Howl's heart and grabs at it when she has a chance? Why do they let the Witch of the Waste and he and the dog come with them? Like, okay, they're on the plane, but they could have dropped them off somewhere. afterwards. You know, they didn't need to let them live with them. Why did they do that if these are, you know, enemies? And if they're not, what caused them to start trusting them? Now, I know this is adapted from a book. I've never read the book. I know the author of the book liked the movie, but said it was very different. I know that a lot of fans of the book really disliked the movie because it changed too much in their eyes. On the other hand, that happens basically any time a book is adapted into a movie and anything is changed, so I don't know how much credence to give that. But it really makes me wonder, like, were these things... Like, are we expected to have read the book and therefore know what the characters' motivations are? Because that's not how you adapt things. You don't adapt things just for the people who liked the original. A work has to stand on its own, even if it's an adaptation of another work. Like... I just don't know what to make of these things. The movie ends up feeling like very emotionally flat. It's... I don't know how else to put it. Like, okay. As a little boy, Howl ate a falling star to keep it from dying. I got that. Because all the other ones were dying when they hit the ground. And that's Calcifer. And now Calcifer has his heart, and in exchange, Howl has magical power, I guess? Or has power over Calcifer? He already had magical power? I don't really get that part. Like, what is the nature of their contract? And, like, at first, Calcifer is, you know, the deal with the devil type thing, trying to make contracts and things, but then, oh wait, no, he's nice after all. Because everybody in this world turns out to be nice after all. But then, why were they doing this shit in the first place? You know? Why was Calcifer trying to make a deal with Sophie to break free if he's actually really this nice guy who's totally okay with Howl? And if that's something like his character grew over the course of the movie, well, not really. We never saw it. It's just early in the movie he's this and later in the movie he's this. Or Madame Suleiman is honestly terrifying early in the movie. But then at the end, it's like, oh, well, Howl is happy and in love. Let's end the war now because this is the happy ending. What? What? Like, that's all I can say to that is, what? Like, I think that's my thing, is characters just, they don't evolve over the course of this movie. They're one thing and then they're another with no apparent cause. Except for Sophie, whose character doesn't appear to change at all. But then what was the whole curse about? What changed that she gets to be young now, albeit with silver hair? Like, at that and the haircut, that all seems to mark her having transformed in some way from who she was at the beginning. But what was that transformation? You know? What was she like before the curse that she isn't now? You know, because she went in, like, the first thing she did after, like, it feels like it wants to be, like, confidence and emotional honesty, but from the moment she became an old woman, she was full of that. You know? And I'm getting kind of ranty, but I honestly didn't dislike the movie. It's just, it feels like a lot of well done pieces, you know, that don't fit together into anything. It's honestly kind of like the house itself. That it's just this ramshackle thing with bits stuck on of multiple different houses. With the result that you look at it and you're like, what even is that? It's kind of a mess of a movie. Like, each individual scene works fine on its own, but they don't cohere into anything. There is no arc. And it's not even like, there are narrative forms that don't conform to our expectations of what a story normally is, you know? There are forms that don't have a central conflict, at least not a conflict between things that exist within the story. There are forms that don't follow the same kinds of development arcs, you know? But the movie doesn't feel like any of those either. It feels like the scenes, the individual scenes all feel like things that come out of a specific arc. It's just the arc is missing, you know? The scene, the climax of the movie where Sophie goes into Howl's past, and all that stuff, like, that feels like the climax of an emotional arc. We just never saw any of the rest of the arc. And never got any implication that any of it was happening off screen. Let me give an example. At one point in the movie, they need to leave the house because Madame Suleiman is hunting them, and if they leave the house, and she won't be able to follow them because she's following the house. So they all leave the house, and there's this whole thing where Calcifer doesn't want to go, and Sophie scoops him up and pulls him out, and he has to be the last one to leave the house because it just collapses the moment he's out of it. And then they immediately turn around, go back into the house, and try to reactivate it again. Why did they leave it in the first place? Like, the scene where they convince Calcifer to leave the house and then take him out, and then he collapses in on itself is a good scene. Yay, we made the sacrifice to escape from Madame Suleiman. And the scene where, they have to help and encourage Calcifer to reactivate the house is a good scene. It's just that placing one immediately after the other doesn't make any sense. And that's basically the issue I have with this movie, I guess, is that it doesn't, on the overall level, not the individual scene level, it doesn't hold together. It doesn't make sense. There is no sense of why these characters are doing what they're doing. There's no emotional arc to it. And so it's ultimately just a bunch of pretty images. Which is fine. Like I said, it's a fine way to spend 2 hours if you got nothing better to do. But it's not something that really sticks. And so for that reason, I think is why, like I was saying, like with Spirited Away, it's that there's kind of an ambiguity in how he feels about the loss of spirituality in Japan. It's overall, leans a little more into the mourning than into the angry, but there's also this little sense that it's not completely lost. And like the little girl in that, whose name Shisa, I think, but don't quote me on that. It's been a long time since I've seen it. Chie, maybe. Anyway, she is like childhood has been completely lost. She is not a Miyazaki child. She is not what Miyazaki depicts childhood as. But she is able a little bit to regain it over the course of the movie. So that's why that one kind of falls in the middle of this spectrum, because he's not as upset as he is in most movies. And where he is upset, he's kind of balanced between sadness, anger, and a sense that maybe things aren't all as bad. Maybe things haven't been completely lost. Howl's, on the other hand, falls into the middle because, yeah, there's a little bit of that anti-war anger, and yeah, there's a little bit of sadness around the fact that Sophie pretty obviously did not get to be young even before she was cursed. But mostly it's just a bunch of stuff jumbled together. Which I guess, has a thematic continuity with the castle, but that isn't enough to build a movie around, in my opinion. So, yeah. Still, like I said, I enjoyed it. It's just not as much. Like, I enjoyed it where, like I said, the only Miyazaki film I actually dislike is My Neighbor Totoro. That's the one that I'm just like, can this be over yet? I never felt like that during Howl's. I never felt like, hurry up and end. I never felt like, I don't want to be watching this. It's an okay film. It's just not a great film the way that Spirited Away or Princess Mononoke or Laputa is. Laputa's good. It's not great. It doesn't compare to the other two I mentioned. It's not even like an ambitious but flawed film the way Nausicaa is. It's just a pile of stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks for supporting me, Benny. Thanks for watching, all of you. If you would like to commission a vlog for yourself or to see advance other vlogs, you can check out my Patreon. I've got a lot of goodies on there for backers, from gaming videos to vlogs to essays about the DC Animated Universe. Lots of good stuff. You can also check out my website, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all next time. Bye!